In 1922, a man broke a hole in a sealed door and held up a candle. Behind it was the only pharaoh's tomb ever found nearly intact. Within 7 weeks, the man who funded the dig was dead. The newspapers called it a curse. What actually killed him was a mosquito. Egyptian tombs were not graves. They were supply depots for eternity, packed with everything a dead king might need for the rest of forever. And what's actually inside them is stranger than any curse. 20 things found inside Egyptian tombs that sound made up, all of them real. Subscribe, let's go. Number 1. Tutankhamun's tomb held over 5,000 objects, crammed into a space smaller than a modern apartment. Chariots, thrones, weapons, jewelry, furniture, food, clothing, all piled in on top of each other. It took Howard Carter 10 years just to catalog it, not to excavate, to make the list. Number 2. Tutankhamun was a minor pharaoh, and he's only famous by accident. He died around 19, ruled for about a decade, and changed almost nothing. His tomb is small, hurriedly decorated, and probably wasn't even built for him. The reason it survived is that debris from a later tomb buried the entrance, and grave robbers simply lost track of it. Every great pharaoh was looted into oblivion. The forgotten teenager got buried under a rubbish pile and became the most famous Egyptian who ever lived. Number 3. The death mask is 10 kilograms of solid gold. Not gilded, not plated, solid. Inlaid with lapis lazuli, obsidian, quartz, and colored glass. It sat directly on the face of the mummy, inside 3 nested coffins, the innermost of which was another 110 kilos of gold. And this was the modest tomb of an unimportant king. Number 4. One of his daggers was made from a meteorite. When scientists finally analyzed the iron blade buried against Tutankhamun's thigh, they found a nickel and cobalt signature that doesn't occur in Egyptian ore. It matches iron from space. This was made centuries before Egypt could smelt iron at all. During the Bronze Age, someone found a rock that fell out of the sky, recognized it as something extraordinary, and forged it into a blade for a king. Tutankhamun was buried with a weapon made of a falling star. Now, the curse. Number 5. The man who funded the dig died 7 weeks after the tomb opened, of a mosquito bite. Lord Carnarvon was bitten on the cheek, nicked the bite while shaving, and it became infected. In an age before antibiotics, the infection turned to blood poisoning and pneumonia, and it killed him. The press decided it was the pharaoh's revenge. Newspapers around the world ran with it. The curse of the mummy was not found in the tomb. It was invented in a newsroom. Number 6. And almost everyone else lived. Howard Carter, the man who actually opened the tomb, who handled the mummy, who was in the chamber every day for a decade, lived another 16 years and died at 64 of natural causes. Studies of everyone present at the opening found their lifespans were unremarkable. The curse killed one wealthy man with an infected shaving cut and spared the person who had his hands on the pharaoh number 7. But sealed tombs really can make you sick. A tomb closed for 3,000 years is a sealed box of stale air, bat droppings, bacteria, and mold, including species of aspergillus that can cause serious lung infections, especially in someone already frail. So there may be a real unglamorous danger in opening ancient tombs. It just isn't a vengeful spirit. It's a fungus. Number 8. Real curses were written on tomb walls as anti-theft devices. They weren't mystical secrets. They were security signage. Inscriptions threatened robbers with being seized by a crocodile, a snake, a scorpion, or judged by the gods. They were the ancient equivalent of a beware of the dog sign and, judging by how thoroughly the tombs were looted, roughly as effective. Number 9. They found honey in the tombs, and it was still edible. Honey doesn't spoil. It's too acidic and too dry for bacteria to survive in, so a sealed jar of it can sit for millennia and remain, chemically, honey. Archaeologists have recovered pots from Egyptian tombs that were still perfectly good. 3,000 years in a tomb, and you could have put it on your toast. Number 10. They mummified the food too. Cuts of beef, ducks, and geese were embalmed, wrapped in linen, and packed into boxes as victual mummies, meals for the afterlife, preserved with the same care as a person. Tutankhamun was buried with dozens of them. Someone in the palace kitchen had the job of mummifying a duck dinner for a dead teenager to eat in eternity. Number 11. They were buried with board games. Senet was Egypt's favorite game, and boards were placed in tombs so the dead could keep playing. But it wasn't only entertainment. Over time the game became religious, its squares mapped to hazards of the underworld. Playing Senet in the afterlife was a way of literally gambling your way through it. They buried you with the board because you were going to need it. Number 12. They buried little servant statues to do your chores for you. Shabdi figurines were placed in tombs to work on the dead person's behalf in the afterlife because paradise, in the Egyptian imagination, still involved farming. Some tombs contained 365 of them, one for every day of the year, plus overseer figures to supervise them. They built a workforce out of clay so they would never have to work again. Number 13. Almost every tomb was robbed, often within a generation. The Valley of the Kings was chosen precisely because hidden tombs seemed safer than pyramids, which advertised their own contents. It didn't work. Nearly every royal tomb in the valley was stripped, sometimes within decades of the burial, sometimes while the dynasty that built it was still in power. Number 14. The robbers were often the men who built the tombs. They knew the layouts. They knew what was inside. They knew when the guards changed. The workers of Deir el-Medina, who carved the tombs of the pharaohs by day, are documented in court records robbing them by night. The security system and the threat were the same people. Number 15. We have the robbers' confessions written down. Papyri survive recording the trials of tomb robbers, including their testimony, extracted under beating and torture. They describe breaking into a royal burial, stripping the gold from the coffin, and setting fire to what was left. It is the oldest crime scene testimony in the world, and the men are speaking to us directly across 3,000 years. Number 16. For centuries, Europeans ground up Egyptian mummies and ate them as medicine. It was called mumia, and it was a genuine mainstream pharmaceutical in Europe for hundreds of years. Ground mummy was prescribed for bruising, bleeding, epilepsy, and general ailments. It was stocked by respectable apothecaries. Kings took it. Demand became so high that suppliers faked it with fresh corpses. Europe spent centuries robbing Egypt's graves and swallowing the results. Number 17, and then they painted with them. A pigment called mummy brown, made as advertised, from ground Egyptian mummies mixed with pitch and myrrh, was sold to European artists into the 20th century. Painters used it for shadows and skin tones. When one artist finally learned what was actually in the tube, he reportedly took it into his garden and gave it a proper burial. Number 18. They buried an entire ship. Beside the Great Pyramid, in a sealed stone pit, archaeologists found a full-size cedar boat, over 40 meters long, dismantled into more than 1,000 pieces and packed away like flat-pack furniture. It had never sailed. It was built to carry the pharaoh across the sky. They buried a ship in the desert for a dead man to sail through the heavens. Number 19. Tutankhamun was buried with 130 walking sticks. For a long time, this looked like ceremonial excess. Then scans of his body revealed a clubfoot, a degenerative bone condition, and a broken leg. He needed them. The Golden Boy King, the most glamorous corpse in history, was a disabled teenager who could barely walk, and they buried him with every cane he ever leaned on. Number 20. And the greatest treasure ever found in Egypt came from the least important king. Everything we know about the wealth of the pharaohs, the gold, the jewels, the scale of it, we learned from a minor teenage ruler in a cramped second-hand tomb that survived by accident. Which raises the question nobody can answer. If this is what a nobody was buried with, what was in the tomb of Ramses the Great? The tombs were built to last forever, and they nearly did. What defeated them wasn't time. It was people, the workers who carved them, the robbers who stripped them, the apothecaries who ate them, and the newspapers that turned a shaving cut into a curse. The pharaohs wanted to be remembered. They just never imagined it would be like this. If you like the strange corners of history, subscribe.